Good evening, everybody. We'll go ahead and convene the special CBSC meeting Thursday, October 27th, 2022 at 6 p.m. We'll start with a roll call. Carolyn Chow, not present. Jennifer Givens.
Present.
Raquel Gonzalez. Cameron Hoffman.
Present.
Carl Landers.
Present.
Rodney Leach. Not present. Carl Metz.
Present.
Jacqueline Rodriguez Luna. Not present. Jit Paul Sahai. I apologize if I said your last name wrong.
That's fine. I'm present.
Thank you. Was this a majority of the CBOC public meeting? Janet, can you address this question, please?
I'm sorry, Rick, I didn't quite hear the roll call. Do we have 6 members present?
We do.
Okay. 6 is a quorum of this total committee of 11.
The question was about who called the special meeting and if it was a majority of the Citizens Oversight Committee.
No, I believe the special meeting was called solely for the purpose of voting to ensure that we could convene our regular meeting by Zoom or by remote technology.
You need to get up to the mic. I'm sorry that.
Pursuant to section 54956 Government Code, a special meeting may be called at any time by the presiding officer or the legislative body of a local agency or by a majority member of the legislative body by delivering written notice to the member of the legislative body and to each local newspaper of general circulation. So to the extent that the majority of this body did not call the meeting, it is an invalid meeting and should not occur. And I also don't believe, independent of that, I would ask if the newspapers were notified. If that has not been done, it's a violation of California Code section 54956.
Can I ask who's speaking?
Chris Robel, I'm a member of the public.
Okay, Mr. Robel, it's not time for public comment.
If this meeting is being conducted not by you, I believe you're the bonds counsel. It's a meeting for the bond oversight committee. If they have something to say, I have just as much right as you do because you're also treated as a member of the public, is my understanding.
No, I'm not. I'm sorry.
All right, well.
Mr. Robel, thank you for your comments. I think the meeting's been appropriately convened with the.
You think there was proper notice and it was consistent with section 54956, you believe? Were the newspapers notified of this meeting?
Okay, well, I don't have the code section in front of me. I can pull that together in a moment.
I have it right here. If anybody.
But let me, no, I don't need for you to quote it to me, but maybe Rick, can you let me know how notice was given of the meeting?
Notice was sent out to members and posted on the website.
By whom?
By the school district, who is the administrative agent for the bond oversight committee, Mr. Robel.
Okay, and it has to be by the presiding officer of the legislature, a majority of the members of the legislative body, which is not.
Well, tonight we will be selecting a new chair, and in the absence of the chair, the district puts agendas together and convenes the meeting. So I suggest that we go ahead. And we've got a quorum present, and we go ahead and move into the approval of the agenda. And Mr. Robel, you're welcome to make public comment at the time that is appropriate for public comment.
If the meeting is going to start, then there should be a time for public comment. That is, meetings late will be starting.
Public comment.
If there's public comment or panelist comment?
May I be heard?
Well, can we get approval of the agenda from the committee members?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Just to be clear, we're talking about the agenda for the special meeting, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving forward to item 3, public comments. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the committee?
Greetings, members of the committee. My name is Tom Rubin. I am a member of the Board of Directors of the California Association of Bond Oversight Committees. Thank you for hearing me today. The issue at question on the special meeting is if it was properly called. The statute is very specific that it can be called in 2 ways: by the presiding officer or by a majority of the members of the body. Right now, you do not have a presiding officer. Your bylaws say that you have a chair and a vice chair, and the chair is the presiding officer and the vice chair, in the absence of the chair, is the presiding officer. Since you have neither at the current time, you have no presiding officer, and there is no provision in your bylaws beyond that. So you have no presiding officer. So if a majority of the members did agree to call this meeting, and that was properly done as for the requirements for agenda meetings to call a meeting, and the other notices were given, then this is a valid meeting. But if that was not done, then I submit to you that this may not be a proper meeting. Thank you.
Are there any more public comments? Moving on to action item number 4, authorizing electronic meetings of the CBOC during a state of emergency pursuant to Government Code Section 54953 parentheses E. This is to allow us to conduct our normal CBOC meeting, which will immediately follow this meeting via in person and via Zoom or electronic means. Because of the infrequency of this meeting was the reason why we added this as a special meeting. Under normal business in the school district, we approve this once every 30 days. So this was in order to be able to have the regularly scheduled meeting. With that, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. If there's no questions, I will entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Seconded.
Thank
Go ahead.
you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Thank you. Motion carries. Item number 5, adjournment of the special meeting. If I could have a motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. All right. Good evening, everyone. Calling the regularly scheduled Citizens Bond Oversight Committee meeting to order. Another roll call vote quickly, please. Carolyn Chow, Jennifer Gibbons,
Present.
Raquel Gonzalez, Cameron Hoffman,
Present.
Carl Landers,
Present.
Rodney Leach, absent. Carl Metz, Jacqueline Rodriguez Luna, Paul Sahai.
Present.
Present. Thank you. Moving on to item number 2, approval of the agenda. I will ask or recommend that we move action item 4, election of a chair and vice chair, prior to public comment. And then public comment will immediately follow the election of the chair and vice chair, and then we'll go through the remainder of the agenda.
Makes sense.
So I would need a motion that would include that change, please.
Okay, I move
I was
that
gonna-
we move item 4, the election of the vice chair and the chair, up ahead of public comment.
Seconded.
I second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Thank you. Approval of agenda is set. Moving item number 4, prior to public comment, item number 3. Moving to item number 4, election of a chair and vice chair for the Measure T Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. I will note it should be 4.1.1 and 4.1.2 below it. We had a bit of a formatting error apparently. At this time, we will take nominations from the committee for a chair of the committee.
I nominate-
Once the chair is elected, they will then take over the running of the meeting.
I was going to nominate Carl Landers as chair.
I'd second that.
I accept your nomination.
Are there any other nominations for chair? Seeing none, all in favor of Carl Landers as chair of the Measure T Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Congratulations, Carl. You are the new chair of the Measure T
I know
Citizens
congratulations are in order.
Bond
We'll see.
Oversight Committee. And with that, I'll provide any assistance that you need, but
Thank you. You've done an excellent
you can
job
run
so
through the
far, and
agenda.
welcome to your first meeting.
thank you.
All right, that takes us to item 4.1.2, is it, I guess, or maybe it's 3. But anyway, it's the election of the vice chair.
I
Any
nominate
motions?
Jen Givens as vice chair.
Seconded.
Jen, do you accept the nomination for vice chair?
I sure do.
Any other nominations? All right, not hearing any. So the motion is to elect Jen Givens as the vice chair. And we'll take everyone in favor, please. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? Okay, congratulations, Jen.
Thanks.
Okay, so that then we're going to, I guess we'll come back to the approval of the minutes, which is 4.4, because we're going to move to the public comment section now. What we agreed. So we're back on what was originally agenda item 3, which is the public comment. At this time, members of the public may address the CBOC on any items of interest. We request that you limit your remarks to 3 minutes, and we're not going to be able to take any action on this, but are happy to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. Tom Rubin again. Thank you. Tom Rubin again. There are a large number of rules and requirements, and already you have violated, in my opinion, a large number of them. For example, if you are having a remote meeting, there is a statutory requirement that all votes be done by roll call, the name of each person, and then they say yay, nay, or abstain. I strongly suggest that you do your election again and do a roll call, because otherwise it could be considered invalid. The question of, was the first meeting valid? And if that was necessary so you could do a remote meeting, for this meeting, did you meet the requirements? If that meeting was not valid, then do you have authorization to do remote meetings? And if you don't, this entire meeting and everything you do could be thrown out as invalid. Another thing, the people that are remote, were the agendas posted at those sites? That may not seem very logical, but it is a requirement by statute. Are those sites where the people are calling from, are they accessible? Because members of the public, including those with disabilities, have the right to attend remotely at the sites where the members are voting from. Now, these may seem silly. Frankly, I think they're silly. But if you don't know the rules and you don't follow them, you run the risk of everything you have done being tossed out as improper, and you have to start over. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment at this time?
Thank you. Congratulations, Carl. Chris Robel. So I would like to get clarity with respect to the public comments. So I did post 2 agenda items. I submitted 2 agenda items prior to the 72-hour requirement, and my materials were not posted on the website. Neither actually were yours until just yesterday morning, but mine haven't been posted at all. I would like to know, which obviously is a requirement. I would like to know if I'm able to go through my 2 agenda items with sufficient time. I'm the one that so I don't know, Carl, what your thoughts are, you and the CBOC, with respect to, I mean, I probably need 5 minutes for each one, something in that ilk, or do I need to quickly run it through this session? You know, you said that you haven't done this before. My understanding is there needs to be public comment for each agenda item. So, yeah.
Are these agenda items on the agenda or?
Presentation.
Yeah, they're encapsulated in item 5.1.
I can make a brief comment on this
Please.
issue. So the members of the right of members of the public to place an item on an agenda is limited solely to a school board. It's in the education code. It's not part of the Brown Act. And so that's issue 1. And Mr. Robel, this is your time, your limited time for public comment. So if you would like to share comments or thoughts about different concerns or issues you have, then I would suggest that you use your 3 minutes to cover those items.
Oh, I have 3 minutes just now and not in advance of the items. Is that correct? So this is a general comment session. You're not doing public comments for each agenda item?
That's correct. That's my understanding as to how the committee conducts its proceedings.
That's inconsistent with the Brown Act. But I also think this is underscoring a key point, which the independent Citizens Board Oversight Committee needs to be independent and seek its own counsel. But that's one of my main points. Yeah, don't shake your head. I'm going to, and who on the Board Oversight Committee? Are you on the Board Oversight? Oh, yes.
Yes, I'd like to, Chair.
I have one
Thank you.
already. Thanks.
I'm sorry, the remote opinion. Don't have it. So I'm going to race through this as quick as I can. So 2 agenda items. One is, okay, these are all things regarding CBOC reporting requirements per the education code listed on there. Avoid situations where the body being overseen, the district, is selecting its own overseers, the CBOC. The fox should not be watching the hen house. Number 2, and Tom can talk about the process for that. Number 2, there should always be an active chair and a vice chair in place. Governance issue. Number 3, agendas should be set and meetings run by a CBOC member, not by Rick, not by somebody from the district. Number 4, bylaws say the CBOC meets quarterly. If you don't want to meet quarterly, change the bylaws. You met once this year. Establish a board of committee. A CBOC website needs to be established, not a web page that's buried in the district, which nobody can find, and you don't even have anyway. So that needs a separate CBOC website needs to be put forward. I can cite all the agenda, the statutes if you need to later. Agendas need to be posted with all materials to the CBOC website at least 72 hours prior to the meeting. Obviously, that wasn't done for this meeting. Past agendas with all materials and minutes of all past meetings should be on the CBOC website. Also, all the audit reports, all the CBOC reports, which are currently not there, also need to be there. There's no reason to be removing, contrary to the bylaws, information after 1 month. Sunshine is a disinfectant. There's no reason that you're not short of electrons. Once you post them, they should stay there. I don't know why it says they get rid of them. The bylaws say it gets rid of them after 1 month. CBOC meetings should be recorded in audio and or video, just like the other ones are, the board trustee meetings. You should enable the public to send correspondence directly to the CBOC in case there's a need, a whistleblower law, right? So outside the district's purview. The CBOC should be given afforded legal advice as needed from independent counsel, not the district's counsel. That's a conflict. That word independent is important there. Annual report, and then the last point is annual reports need to inform the public concerning bond expenditure revenues. There's a whole set of things that I'm going to let Tom do because I'll run out of time. The second agenda item: what kind of expenditures can be authorized by Prop 39? Repairs and maintenance. I saw the presentation sent to me 15 minutes ago by Olivia. Unacceptable. That should have been done 3 days ago. Painting is not an acceptable, which you did in front of Roosevelt School. That's not an example of an acceptable Prop 39 bond money. That's an expense item, not a capitalized investment. Painting stairs, it's not part of a new building. Investments to reduce operating costs are fine if they are tied to a new building, but if they're solely for the purpose of reducing costs, say putting solar panels in an existing building that's going to save you operating costs, that's a violation of Prop 39. Equipment and furnishings, and contrary to what the district's attorney wrote, they're twisting the words. They have 2 bullets on this presentation that Olivia sent me. You need to read: bond indebtedness is for the construction, reconstruction, rehabilitation, or replacement of school facilities, comma, including the furnishing equipment of said school facilities. That's a modifying the CRRR clause. So you cannot just buy equipment and furnishings by itself. It has to be in the context of construction, rehabilitation, and replacement. Prop 39 is a deal. It needed 2/3 vote. If you want 55% vote, there's a set of rules and restrictions that need to be imposed and followed. And if it's not, it's all illegal. And again, it's the and workforce housing, to say the obvious, I'll let him do it. That's patently illegal, as much as I would think that's one of the better investments on your list, but I care about teachers, but not. But anyway, the workforce housing is not a school facility. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there someone else from the public who would like to speak? Please come up. Thank you.
I am a taxpayer here in Redwood City, born and raised, born at Sequoia Hospital, as were my children. And I also sit on the board at Connect Community Charter, which is a public school in the Redwood City School District. And I've been a board member there for several years. My concern tonight is that as a taxpayer, I'm the only one sitting here, in addition to these gentlemen here. And I think that there's a lack of research outreach, to the public to try to drive more participation from those of us who are actually paying the money on our property taxes. There's so many property taxes on my property tax bill, in addition to the ones that will come in November, that they are grouped because there's not enough paper to outline all of the bonds and taxes on my property tax up there that I'm going to pay for. And that really lends itself to the public not understanding what's on their tax bill, because it's such an addendum and so tight on there. People really don't know what they're paying for. I think there needs to be more outreach and more participation. I looked at the link associated with applying for one of these positions as a taxpayer in Redwood City, and it was broken. And now, before public comment, everyone has been elected, I guess, with the openings. And I didn't, as a portion of the tax-paying public in this community, I actually didn't have an opportunity to apply or learn more about that. And I'm beseeching you to engage the tax-paying public that is paying these taxes and being asked again in November to pay again, which does not lend itself to affordable housing in this community. And as an owner, and I'm sure many of you are also in this community an owner, if you have an ADU in the back and you are renting that, you are not going to absorb these taxes. It's not greedy. That's not how capitalism works. This money's going to hit the taxpayers, and we have a right to participate in this process. And I was blocked in this process tonight. And so I am asking you to reconsider some due diligence and outreach to the tax-paying public in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public who'd like to speak in during this session?
Tom Rubin. May I assume I'm allowed to speak again?
Please.
Okay. First, I am going to pass out some cards, and anyone who would like any information from the California Association of Bond Oversight Committees, please feel free to reach me. I've gone over your bylaws and I have several comments on them. First of all, I'm an accountant. I have been in bond oversight committees for over 20 years, and I'm pretty familiar with the details. I vary somewhat on some of the things he said are and are not allowable, and I'm not going to go into that now, but that's a fine point, and that's why you have bond counsel. But the first recommendation I'm going to make is that you follow the K-box recommendation, and that each CBOC should have its own independent bond counsel. I'm sorry, its own independent counsel, not bond counsel and not district counsel, internal, extra. You have your own that is responsible for you, does no other work for the district, paid for by the district, and that's perfectly proper, and it is being done at other California K-12 districts. And frankly, quickly get somebody as your counsel who can also serve as your parliamentarian and advise you on what you can do, what you can't do, and what you really should do. You frankly are probably a little above average from what little I've seen. Unfortunately, I have seen several instances of people going to jail because of what they have done improperly with bond funds, and districts going into great disgrace. You do have a number of good things going for you. I recommend that you see what else can be done to strengthen your bylaws and go through for other changes, and then get down to the business of first of all saying that you have good systems, procedures, and people in place that you can count on. Because there's no way in hell that the members of this committee can go over every expenditure. So you're relying on people, systems, and experience, and then you want to get reports. And what I recommend is a series of exception reports. If things are going along fine, and we're talking time, dime, shine, is the project coming along on schedule? Is it on budget? And as far as the shine, are you getting what was promised? Is it working the way it is? Is it passing the code inspections, et cetera, et cetera? And you're getting the performance from it that was promised. Thank you for your time. I'll be more than happy to speak in more detail to anyone who is interested.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else? Do we have anyone online that would like to speak from the public? Not sure how we know that, but
Yeah, yeah, I'd like to mention that Carolyn Chow just joined as another member of the Bond Oversight Committee. Welcome tonight. And if there's any members of the public who wish to address the committee, please click the raise hand button on the bottom of your Zoom box, and we will give you the ability to speak to the committee. I don't have any hands
no
raised.
hands raises. And anyone else here in the room to speak? Not seeing any, then we'll close the public comment portion of the agenda, item 3, and move on to what is numbered in the agenda as 4.4, which is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, April 21st of 2022. Can I entertain a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Any second on that?
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the minutes that we would like to have? Does anyone have any questions or comments? I haven't looked at the printout here, but I know they were sent in advance by Olivia. Okay, and we do have them here in front of us as well. Okay, not hearing any comments on the minutes. Let's call for the vote then. All those in favor of approving the last meeting minutes, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And those opposed? Abstain? All right, so meeting minutes from the last meeting are approved. And that's going to take us now into section 5, which is information and discussion. Now, since we didn't have a chairperson and the chairperson wasn't involved in building the agenda, I just want to clarify that none of these are for action by the committee. Is that correct? These are just all information sharing? Okay. So the only, there are no other actions on the agenda other than adjourning the meeting, basically. But we do have a section at the end for members to suggest items for the next meeting's agenda and to talk about presumably when we have the next meeting. So, okay, let's move into section 5.1, which is welcoming the new members, introduction of the members. Is there, do we have a list? Okay, here we go. So there is document 5.1.1, which is a list of the members of the committee with terms. Is there someone from the district who'd like to comment on the new members, or would you like me to?
Yeah, I'll make a quick comment first. Yeah, as you noted, handout 5.1.1 is the list of the current members of the Measure T Oversight Committee. I would like to thank and welcome our new members who are joining us for the first meeting tonight. We do appreciate the service that you will provide, not only tonight, but at our future meetings as well. You'll note on the handout, we do have 2 vacant positions that we have been trying to fill without success. 2 mandated members of a Citizens Oversight Committee. That includes a member of a business organization and a senior citizens organization. So there are still 2 open seats per our requirement for this committee, but we are still conducting outreach and talking to different groups to see if someone would like to be part of this committee.
Yeah, I mean, we will certainly entertain, since we don't have so many members of the public. If the public wants to comment on one of these items, please step up and make your comment. Certainly, unless anyone on the board objects. Thank you for coming.
You said that there's outreach happening, and I want to understand that outreach because I'm in marketing and part of a business organization in education here in Redwood City, in addition to sitting on a different board. And normally outreach would include a link that works on the website. So I'm unclear. I haven't seen anything on Peach Jar. I haven't seen anything around town. I haven't seen anything that works on the district website. So I'm unsure to which outreach is referred. Is it simply a cherry picking by district people, or is there actually a process that the public can understand?
Thanks for your questions,
Thank
and
you.
let's see if we can address them right here. I know there was extensive outreach done when we brought in the new members in, I think, the springtime. So, oh,
Thank you, Tom Rubin again.
yeah.
Among other things, I'm the vice president of the Alameda County Taxpayers Association, and I frequently interact with the other local taxpayers associations. So here you have the Silicon Valley Taxpayers Association. I don't know whether you have reached out to them. I know they do include this area as their area. And my understanding of your bylaws is you don't have to live here if you work here. So they may be able to help you. Speaking as somebody who spent 17 years as the consultant to the Los Angeles Unified School District Bond Oversight Committee. Trying to find people to fill up a BOC is a very difficult job. The things you do are thankless and time consuming and unpaid. So it's difficult, but you learn who to reach out to. For example, chambers of commerce for the business members. That's usually a good try. You can always go to the PTAs. And often through PTA, not only do you get those two members, you get the student, parent, guardian who's a member of a PTA or similar association, but often they have somebody who can fill the business or one of the other requirements. So I strongly suggest that type of outreach. I hope that's helpful. Again, if you want to contact me personally, I may be able to make some contacts with some other local taxpayer organizations. Thank you.
All right, thanks for your comment. I think we could, I'm thinking we can make a suggestion for an agenda item for our next meeting to cover this specific topic. Since recruiting members isn't on the agenda, I think we can table it and put it onto the next meeting agenda. But thank you to the public for your commentary on that. And we just reiterating, we do have 2 open positions that we want to fill. My quick question is in the bylaws that we were provided a copy of this evening. Thank you. It mentions 7 members on the board. We have 9 and we're looking to go to 11. So I'm just wondering, I believe the school board approves the changes to the bylaws of the CBOC. So do we need to change have the school board change the bylaws to say we want 11 members instead of 7? And then we'll be very clear on the quorum, et cetera. Or am I unclear on who is responsible for amending the bylaws?
BOC and bylaw.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for pointing that out. So section 8 of the bylaws says that the bylaws may be amended by a majority vote of the committee at any regular meeting at which said amendment is placed on the agenda. So another item for us to place on the next meeting agenda would be changing the bylaws to reflect the actual membership of the committee, which is different from when they were approved in, was it 2016, I think, originally. Yes, I just clarified that thank you for asking that.
Bylaws of this board are changed by this board, not the district. I think that's what was clarified.
Thank you. Yep.
Janet?
And if you want to make a public comment, please do come up to the microphone so the people who are on the Zoom can hear you and it can get recorded as part of the meeting. No problem. But what you said is that we have clarified that the committee changes the bylaws, not the board.
No, the board changes it, not the board.
Well, yes, there's 2 uses of the word board here, but yes, the Citizens Oversight Board changes it, not the school board.
Yeah. Oh, there's a comment from Janet Mueller.
Oh. Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, sorry.
Okay, why don't you go ahead, Jennifer? with
It's
your
really
question?
quick. I just wanted to note in regards to the outreach of filling the CBOC committee openings, June in 2020, this past summer, it was written in the superintendent's newsletter that Dr. Baker sent out. It was posted that there are openings.
I'm sorry, but that only goes to parents that are engaged. That doesn't go to taxpayers. So that is not an appropriate level of outreach.
I'd just like to suggest as a point of order that when we have public comment, you should come up to the microphone and you're afforded 3 minutes to make your comment on the item. If it's the chair's desire that we're going to open up public comment for each item. But we're unfortunately not able as a board to have a back and forth with members of the public other than a brief response or a note for a future discussion. And I think the chair made that comment already. So would suggest that we adhere to those standard procedures for public meetings. My only comment was, yes, these bylaws.
So I understand the policies of.
Excuse me.
Go ahead, Janet. Go ahead.
My only comment was, yes, these are bylaws of the CBOC. That is not always the way bylaws are accomplished, but here that is what occurred. This body is free after 6-7 years of road testing these bylaws to look at these bylaws again The only comment I would make is that the bylaws need to be consistent with what the law says, and I believe the district may have a board policy also that sets forth the parameters for the committee. So that would be the district's interest in making sure that, you know, the way that the CBOC wants to govern itself certainly has flexibility to accomplish many of its purposes, but as long as that is within the parameters of what the law affords. So that could certainly come back for a future discussion and future discussion of amendments.
Thank you, Janet. So we're, just to clarify to everyone, it's an exciting meeting. We're on section 5.1, which is welcoming new members. And I don't want to miss the opportunity to actually welcome our new members and to celebrate and thank them for their service. So my suggestion at this point is that for those members of the committee that are attending, if you wouldn't mind just briefly introducing yourself, the old members and the new members, and your affiliation, if you want to share that, and then we'll just get to know everyone a little bit better. I'll start. I think you all know me now as Carl Landers, but I'm the parent of two Redwood City District students, a third grader and a fifth grader, and I've been on the committee. I have to check the date here, but I think it was in 2021, so about a year and a half ago. Cameron, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm Cameron Hoffman. I am a parent in the community of two current Redwood City School District children, one in third grade and one in sixth grade. And I have a toddler who will come into the school district. I'm also a taxpayer and a homeowner. So I appreciate the comments coming from the community as well. And I bring those perspectives, and I'm on the North Star Site Council. So I am the member who is a site council or a PTA member as well as a parent. And this is my first meeting.
Thank you. Jen, can we go to you next?
Sure, I'm Jen Gibbons. I have two current students within the Redwood City School District, a first grader and a fourth grader. I joined along with Carl about a little over a year ago. I'm a civil engineer, currently a construction project manager at Stanford, so slightly versed in infrastructure.
Great, thank you. Raquel, would you mind introducing yourself? Welcome.
Sure. I want to say, is this thing on, but it seems like it's, my name is Raquel Gonzalez. I am a mother of a fourth grader at Adelante Spanish immersion, and a toddler, which I was doing the math in a few years. I'll have to start applying for her to come in to the school district. And this is my first meeting, so I'm excited to be here.
Welcome. Thank you. Let's see, who have I missed? Carolyn.
Hi, good evening. My name is Carolyn Chow. I am not a parent in the district. I'm a longtime resident and taxpayer of the district and advocate for the district. I went to Redwood City schools. I still live in Redwood City. I receive Superintendent Baker's email. And in that's where I was alerted to the opening for CBOC members. I was very excited for the opportunity, and so I applied through that. I have a lot of experience in school construction and have ran many bond oversight meetings. So this is a very exciting opportunity for me, and I'm looking forward to working with everybody.
Oh, great. Welcome. Let's see, Jitpal, would you like to go next?
Sure. My name is Jitpal Sahai. I have two children in the Redwood City School District. I'm also a site council member at one of the schools in the district. I'm also a volunteer in the community for youth sports, and I've been on the committee for well over a year. It's been an interesting committee to be part of, and it's been interesting to see how the committee has funded the different schools in the district. I would say that the district's actually done a very good job of providing those funds fairly and equitably, and it's been a very interesting process so far. Thank you.
Thank you. Carl, the other Carl.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carl Metz. I have two children in the Redwood City School District, one at North Star and one at Orion. I am also live here in Redwood City, and I am an architect by background. And So I have a lot of construction experience as well. And I joined right around when Jen and Carl joined the board or the committee as well. So about a year and a half ago.
Thank you. And just to confirm, Jacqueline and Rodney did not join, correct? Yeah. Okay. We will get their introductions next time. Okay, is there anything else that the committee would like to discuss on item 5.1? Oh, sorry, just the welcome of the new members and 5.1.1, the membership roster. All right.
If at all possible, it would be helpful to have the term dates of the vacant positions. I understand there's not a person in there, but when that slot was created, so we know where we are in the 2-year term. It doesn't have to be now.
Okay, good suggestion. Thank you. All right. Shall we move on to then 5.1.2, which is the bylaws? Everyone on the committee, and I think the public hopefully received a copy of the bylaws. Does anyone have any questions? I don't think there's any district presentation on the bylaws, is there? No, so just informational. I think it's great for the committee to review these since we only meet quarterly and it's actually been a while since we met. I find it very helpful to read through these and just refresh on what we're supposed to be doing and what we don't need to do and what we don't cover, as well as what we do cover. So any final thoughts or questions on the bylaws? All right, next item is 5.1.3, discussion of authorized Prop 39 expenditures. Is there information shared on that in advance? I don't think so.
Sure. Janet Mueller from DWK did create a presentation to speak to the next 2 items that she is prepared to present to the committee.
Got it. So that presentation that we got earlier today is for 5.1.3 and 5.1.4.
Correct.
Okay.
And Rick, I don't have the ability to share my screen under the way the meeting is set up. Can somebody give me a share screen, right? Or do you have the ability to share it?
Yeah, let me just make sure.
I think we need a motion for that, Janet.
Right now, Janet, I think you'll have the ability.
Okay, let's see, here we go. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. So can everybody see okay?
Yep, we've got it.
Okay, great. So just a couple of comments. Rick asked me to do just kind of a review of a couple of focus points. And so before we get started, just to let you know, this is not a full-blown sort of orientation or training for the CBOC, but considering where we are in the Measure T program and the fact that there's a pending measure on the ballot, we may want to think about doing a more extensive review for the committee of sort of roles and responsibilities. We have done that a couple of times over the years and maybe due for that, especially considering all the new members that we have. So just a little bit of background to kind of get us into some of these focused issues. So we know that Measure T was passed in November of 2015. And what I think it's important for the Bond Oversight Committee to know is that Measure T, when we talk about what it is, it's a compilation of things. It's a board resolution that called an election. It's that full ballot text that the board adopted that included a bond project list. And it's what we call a ballot measure summary, which is the 75-word statement of the measure, which I put together on a slide just for your basic review, but to recognize that that checkbox with the bonds yes or the bonds no on a ballot is really just a summary, and it's really not the full guiding or information that you need when you're thinking about looking at the expenditures the district has made. So the first CBOC was appointed, I think, in about February of 2016. And of course, people have come and gone over the years, and the district has, I think, over the, I think it initially maybe started with 9, required to have a minimum of 7. And now, of course, it's grown even a little bit larger, which is perfectly fine. It started out as a little bit of a smaller group. All of the bonds authorized by Measure T have been sold, and in fact, they're close to fully spent. We have construction consultants on this call who could tell us exactly how close, but I know that we're getting more into the wind down phase of Measure T. And so with that, your job as overseers of Measure T, and of course, there is a new measure on the ballot as well. And the board, if it passes, the board will make a decision as to whether they are going to consolidate the oversight of that measure under you all, the existing committee, which I assume they would do. That is very common for districts to do, but since Measure S is pending and hasn't passed, those are decisions to be made in the future. So as I mentioned, there technically are 11 members of this committee with 9 positions currently filled. We talked about there being a couple of vacancies, and as we heard from one of our members of the public, it is and can be very challenging to keep members and to recruit members to the Bond Oversight Committee. And so sometimes that is a year-round activity for Bond Oversight Committees and districts to kind of keep their committees fully filled out. Members generally serve 2-year terms with a maximum of 3 consecutive terms. On the point that one of you, I think, asked about just now, I think what we would do is when we have made an appointment for one of the 2 vacant seats, that's when their term will start. So it doesn't really date from the creation of the term. We would just start that member's term as soon as we find that person and the board appoints them to the CBOC. And the committee exists until the bond proceeds are fully expended. And again, sort of put an asterisk there. We know we're coming to the end of Measure T, but we may have Measure S in the future that will take us into the future. So here was what I was referencing as the ballot measure summary for Measure T. I won't read it. It was a $193 million bond authorization for a variety of purposes, but of course, with 75 words to explain to the voters, these were sort of the broad umbrella categories of the anticipated expenditures, which were far more detailed in the bond project list that was included within Measure T and really provides the guidance overall to the Bond Oversight Committee in doing its job. And so before we get into some of the specific questions about expenditures and reporting requirements, it's important to understand the overall purpose of the CBOC, and these pieces on the slide, they come directly out of statute. It's really to inform the public concerning the expenditure of bond revenues, to actively review and report on those expenditures, expenditure of taxpayer money for school construction, and advise the public whether the district has met California constitutional requirements, which were enacted in 2000 when state voters agreed to give districts the ability to pass bond measures with 55% of the vote, as opposed to the traditional 2/3, which it had been before then. And what those California constitutional requirements are here up on the screen: ensuring bond revenues are expended only for construction, reconstruction, rehabilitation, and replacement of school facilities, and ensuring that no funds are used for any teacher and administrative salaries or other school operating expenses. So those are some of the fundamental issues. And so I think it's important as sort of a lead in to the question about what appropriate expenditures are, is to kind of spend a little bit of time unpacking what a construction expense is as opposed to an operating expense. And thankfully, we have had a little bit of, let me just back up real quickly. So the Constitution actually refers to this construction, reconstruction, rehabilitation, or replacement of school facilities. It also refers to furnishing and equipping of school facilities and the acquisition or lease of real property. I may have a different interpretation of the furnishing and equipping of school facilities. I don't read it as one of our public commenters does. I see that furnishing and equipping of school facilities was in addition to the authority districts did not have in the past with traditional 2/3 bonds. They did not have the authority to use bond money to furnish and equip school facilities. And that was part of what was granted by the legislature and by what the California voters approved. But it's very, very important to realize that these are words in statute, and what really we have to look to for guidance for Redwood City School District is projects that are within the scope of the bond project list, which was adopted by the board. So in other words, that's always the list of planned projects that expenditures must meet. And of course, the bond project list also has to be reflective of projects that could be done as allowed by the California Constitution. So you would see projects relating to construction, reconstruction, et cetera, of school facilities. So that's why I'm not presenting to you tonight, but it's important for you to know and become familiar with that bond project list, because that really is our primary guiding document. And I feel confident and comfortable, having worked with the district on that measure, that those projects in the bond project list are all permissible projects within the scope of the law. So let's talk a little bit about that. We have had the benefit of some case law now, when we are making this distinction between sort of what's an operating cost and what's a capital expense. We have had both the California Attorney General as well as California courts make clear that one thing we know for sure is that we can use bond proceeds to pay for employee salaries, but only to the extent those employees are performing administrative oversight work on bond-funded projects. So that can be distinguished from a sort of typical district operating expense, right? We're not talking about teachers and administrators. We're really talking about people who are doing a job that exists solely because of the bond, and they are overseeing and administering the bond. We can obviously pay for our consultants and employees who oversee the construction progress, perform overall project management, accounting that goes along with bond program accounting, and as cases have said, costs incidental but directly related to bond funded projects. And so understanding this is important because we tend to think of what are construction costs, and we think of brick and mortar and construction contractors, but the reality is that there are a lot more expenses that we might incur that are really considered to be kind of capitalizable into project costs. Some of the other ones that cases have talked about are deferred maintenance projects or major maintenance projects. I think that's where we get the notion that painting a school is an appropriate project to be for bond funding, since deferred maintenance projects and things like painting are specifically statutorily included in the definition of major maintenance for school districts. As we talked about furniture and equipment for school facilities, whether the facility itself has been modernized or not is not a condition that's been placed on the use of bond funds for furniture and equipment. It was truly an expansion of authority for school districts, since they did not have that authority in the past. And this was one of the benefits and the expansion of the ability to expend money to actually make a facility usable, which districts did not have in the past. Obviously, construction labor and materials costs, but then of course school construction is very compliance heavy. We have a lot of sort of agencies where we need experts or things are architects, construction managers, attorneys, and then some of the things that you might not be as familiar with, along with public works construction, go many kinds of issues such as environmental review, different kinds of fees that we incur when we go through the Division of State Architect, and things like that are less, I think, obvious or well known to the public, but are obvious, that are absolutely critical to public works construction. But also in terms of incidental costs, things like relocation costs or the need to move programs from one part of a campus to another part of a campus or to a temporary place while facilities are being modernized, are all costs incidental to bond funded projects and are included within the Measure T bond measure and would be also part of S. So those are, I think, some of the an overview of many of the types of permissible expenses. And of course, one of the things that we also needed to do as far as in trade-off for getting that 55% ability to pass a measure at 55%, is that we have to audit. We have to have an outside independent auditor do both a performance and a financial audit of our expenditures. And they're also able to lend their expertise from an audit standpoint to looking at the kinds of expenditures that we've incurred from the bond and to flag any issues or concerns or not. So that's one of the places where you'll also get information as a CBOC. You'll get information from our independent audits. And then turning to, and I guess this is agendized as the next item, we can certainly talk about any of these concepts. But as far as CBOC reporting requirements, so a couple of things, or I might say maybe accountability requirements. So we know all meetings must be open to the public with notice given to the public, similar to same as for a school board meeting. As far as reporting, though, the code says that you should report regularly on your activities, but you need to issue a report at least once a year. It's fairly common. It's not a limit, but it's fairly common for a CBOC to do one report in the year, and that is the minimum. As I mentioned, the CBOC is entitled to receive and does receive Redwood City School District's independent financial and performance audits. Are required to receive it at the same time the district does, and they're entitled to review any responses the district has to the audit. All of this is to infuse and enable the CBOC to have as much information as possible when you do your annual report. And then minutes of meetings and documents received or issued by the CBOC are to be posted on a website maintained by Redwood City School District. Does not have to be independent of the Redwood City School District, but I know that right now the district has been going through a revamp of the website and is going through a review of protocols to ensure accessibility of all the materials on the website. So I think that generally has been true, and we're looking forward to the conclusion of that process so that we can make sure that everything is readily available to the public and easy to find. Then finally, and this is the end of my formal comments. By law, it's the district's board and staff that are to provide technical and administrative assistance to the CBOC without spending bond funds to do it. So that's got to come out of general fund. So very typically that includes a variety of items. And in fact, in your bylaws, I think it's section 4.5, some of those things are detailed. And there are things like preparing agendas and minutes, typically in conjunction with the chair, posting, making sure documents get posted on the website, making sure that correspondence or materials that come in or are directed to the CBOC get to you all, obviously to provide you with all the information you need to actually oversee the expenditures. So financial and progress reports, and I know that there are others here in the meeting who could talk about what that has typically looked like and how that has worked and what kinds of reports are provided. We, as the district, have to submit that performance and financial audit to the CBOC at the same time it's received by the district. And there is a timeline in the code. Those audits have to be done by no later than March 31st each year for the prior fiscal year. I don't know exactly what the timeline is for your audit cycle, but that is sort of an outside date for the audit. And then also to respond to you, to respond to findings and recommendations and concerns raised in the audit, and then share those findings and responses with you all, so that if there were any weaknesses or deficiencies found by the audit, that that any ways that the district were going to address those were shared with you all as well. So I'm going to pause here, and unless anybody wanted to look back at any slides, I can stop the share, and then if anyone has questions, I'm happy to take them.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Janet. I think what we'll do, if you don't mind, is have any discussion or comments by the board member, the committee members, and then if there's public comment on this section of the agenda, happy to take the 3 minutes worth. So anyone on the committee have questions for Janet about her presentation? I think the timing is great, Janet. Thank you for sharing this. We have a lot of new members. I know when I joined, I didn't get this great intro, so this is, I'm sure, appreciated by everyone.
Okay, well, maybe I'll go ahead and take down the slides then, and like I said, if there's anyone who has any other.
Sure. Cameron, were you
Questions?
raising your hand?
I
Just
just have a
shout
couple of
out. Yeah.
clarifying questions. So one, thank you. That's very helpful presentation. I do think it's helpful going forward to hew as close as possible to the statutory or the congressional or the constitutional language. I noticed a couple of ands and ors and things switched, and maybe that's just my background, but I appreciate it. But as close as we can stay to the language would be really helpful. I did have a question, Janet. You said technically there are 11 members of this committee. That's because of prior action of the committee to change the size to 11 members?
No, because it's really the school board that sets the size, and the code tells us we need a minimum of 7. And of the 7, 5 of the members have to meet certain, position criteria. I'm not saying that very well. So as the board has appointed members, they have essentially expanded the committee. So the committee, I think, has been enlarged a couple of times, and because the 2 vacancies are statutorily mandated.
We lost you, Janet. We lost your audio for a minute.
Where I was in there, but so
I
was
think
just
you were
saying
saying because the 2 vacancies are the statutorily mandated positions, namely the
Right.
senior citizens organization and the business organization.
Right.
And so that's why we're at 11 because of those vacancies, but that number is set by the school board. So if those statutory requirements were met by the current members, we could potentially consider whether 11 is the right number. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's coming over here.
Okay.
many.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
yeah. Go ahead and just repeat your response there, Janet. I think
Okay.
we're good. Yep.
Yes, I think if there were a concern that it was too large, you could certainly bring that concern forward to the school district for consideration.
Okay.
We have a number of just sort of at-large members on the committee. We just have to keep in mind that we really must have that core of 5 that meet the statutory conditions, and then an additional 2.
Okay, and sorry, but last question on this, and the committee members are able to meet multiple statutory requirements, is that correct?
I think that's in the bylaws.
I
Yeah.
Is that in the bylaws? Well, okay, then that's what we decided. The law doesn't actually speak to that issue. It doesn't say you can't. So if somebody can meet multiple categories, and that's a way to make sure that we have that representation on the committee, then that's fine.
Okay. And then one more question just for my own edification, the bond project list that you referenced as, what everything that we do must be within, and that's our guiding principle. Is that the California constitutional citation to a specific school facilities project?
Yes.
Under the accountability? Okay, so that's the same document.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Other committee questions? Anybody on Zoom? Or Janet? I did have one, Janet, while others may be formulating theirs, which is on deferred maintenance. I'm not an expert in defining deferred maintenance, but can you say a little bit more about how that qualifies under the bond, appropriate use of bond funds?
Right. Well, and I there may even be better expertise in the room with the district as far as sort of what goes into what different kind of bucket. But we've had a few cases that have looked at the issue of major maintenance and have said that major maintenance, not the day-to-day routine maintenance, not all the maintenance workers who were or custodians who are keeping the schools clean, et cetera. But major major maintenance, which we have some definition of in the education code. We also have some examples in cases where these items were determined to be appropriate. Replacement of systems, in the ed code, it talks, there's sort of a list, a somewhat lengthy list of things that kind of classically meet major maintenance definition. I don't know, Rick, if you have anything else to add there, or Will, or anyone who's sort of has more your hands in the different buckets of the different needs at the district, but.
And would those also need to be detailed on the list, though, that you've referred to when the bond was voted upon?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there an example from the district of one of these deferred maintenance projects, just to give some tangible?
I have to go back and look at the list.
Anybody? Will, I know you've joined. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I mean, not just off the top of my head, I need to go back to our contract list as well.
Oh.
I would assume that would be something like at the end of its life cycle that needs equipment replacement.
Right, a repair of a system, a roof, right, a roof repair. I don't know. I don't want to.
Sure, but the point is, it would need to have been on the list, and
Yes.
Anyway, it's just a qualifier for what goes on the list. I think I get it. Thank you.
Right.
I would say a good one for reference would be like HVAC units, right? Not easily replaced with the amount of budget that's allocated on a annual basis to the maintenance and operations team. But when bonds are passed, one of the things you often see is HVAC for classrooms, either adding it or replacing it because of life cycle.
Okay, anything else from the committee? All right, any public comment on this presentation on the responsibilities of the CBOC and appropriate expenses? You've got 3 minutes.
Okay,
Fire
thank
away.
you. Thank you, Chris Robel. I think this underscores the importance, which Tom alluded to and I did earlier, which is it is so critical. And I hope that you'll consider adding to your agenda next time, getting counsel, because, right, there are conflicts, right? I would probably present the same way if I was on that position. So there's that DWK represents the district in trying to push forward the bond to do the bonds, right? They are the council for the district and supporting them in their goals, right? So I really think it's important, and I believe I'm sorry for your Carolyn, is that your name? Carolyn, her point was well taken, which is, the way when she showed on slide 7, right, construction, rehabilitation, restoration, and then second, right after that, it said furnishings and equipment of school facilities as 2 bullets. That's very different than what I printed off, and what I gave you is the exact Constitution, right? This is the California legislature, the law, right? Section 13A. So it doesn't have, they're not bullets, right? One is a modifying sentence of the other. So the furnishing and equipment of school facilities is a modifier of construction, reconstruction, rehabilitation, and replacement. So you're in the context of doing those activities, you can put it in, but you can't go putting in a $1,000 Herman Miller chair for somebody in an existing building, for example. So it's an important, the commas, like you said, the commas and how it's phrased. And this is something I think if you had just an example, if you had independent counsel, you would get a different answer. With respect to this, right, I'm just going to show you this picture of, unfortunately, people on Zoom can't see it because these 2 items, I just want to step back and I'm a little bit annoyed. These 2 agenda items that she just presented are ones that I asked to be put on the agenda, and they were put on, and I was led to believe, okay, great, you gave me my 2 agendas, and I gave materials for them, and the school attorney runs the discussion on these 2 topics. Anyway, so you can, it was deceiving at best, deceitful, much like a lot of things I've noticed with this district. So these stairs here, right, where they're painted that's an example. But hopefully everybody would agree this is an example of something that would not be a valid use of Prop 39 bond money. It's an example of a Measure T bond expense, but it's not, this isn't in the category of the deferred maintenance that you're talking about. This is beautiful. They're beautiful, right? And it's perfectly reasonable to do it, but it doesn't belong with Prop 39 bond money. I think that's Yeah, so thank you for considering that.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this section of the agenda?
Thank you, Tom Rubin again. First of all, I agree with almost everything that was put forth in that presentation. I'll just mention that the cost accounting and government finance are not exact sciences. And like law, there are a number of things where there are standards, but then there are things no one knows if it falls in or out, and there's no case law or experience. And this is what bond counsel is for. You go to bond counsel and say, what do you think? And bond counsel will look around. They will see what's in law. They will look for case law. They will probably try to talk with some of their compatriots in many cases to see if it's allowable. And over the years, there has become a common body of knowledge over and above what has gone through things like attorney general opinions and case law. Now, for example, of what might be allowed now, repairs and regular maintenance, including scheduled maintenance that allows assets to reach the end of their useful lives, are not generally capital expenditures. They are operating costs. If you have a roof that is failing and you repair that roof, you repair that leak, that generally will not be allowable. But if the roof is so bad that you need to replace the entire thing, and the new roof has a 20-year life from the time you put it in, that generally will be an allowable bond expense. And this is why you need to have your experts on the facility side. You need to have your financial people who are familiar with the California School Accounting Manual, which also has a lot of detail, and as well as bond counsel. Generally, after you go to bond counsel once or twice on the same item, you build up a body of knowledge, and you don't need to keep going back and building up the bills. But this is why you need to have that body of expertise, and you need to have your contacts at other school districts and your counsel, which I recommend that you get, and your bond counsel need to use their avenues. I will take one exception, and that is I have been in conversations where the question is there's 5 designated seats on the BOC. Can somebody fill 2 of those? And bond and counsel, which I have a great deal of respect for, said, hell no, not a chance in hell. I would not try that in a million years. And I think a plain reading of that, including, for example, there are 2 student parent guardian positions. One that's a member of a PTA or similar organization. Anybody who would say, well, gee, we have one person who's a member of PTA, so we don't need another one. I think you would be not in a good position if you were ever challenged on this.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, let's move on then. We're moving to agenda item 5.2, progress report on bond construction and modernization projects. And who do we have to speak to that? Is that Will?
Will Robertson will be
Okay.
speaking to this item.
Welcome, Will, and looking forward to your update.
Great. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is our bond program project progress tracking matrix. As you can see, we're celebrating almost all of our projects are complete. The most recent updates are the Garfield modernization and new construction, as well as the rear parking lot, and the Orion alternative modernization and new construction projects are now substantially complete and have been transitioned into the closeout and DSA certification phase. The Taft modernization and new construction project is also still in the closeout and DSA certification phase. Got a construction progress photo update. We'll start with Garfield. This shows a progress shot of the rear parking lot. This is the restored area where the 8 interim housing portables were. Restored play area. a shot of the backside of the new two-story classroom and library building. This is a side view that shows the built-in lunch shelter and new picnic tables. And the front side view of the building that shows the amphitheater, courtyard, and the library. This shot shows the entire Garfield site, including the new CDC up front and the reconfigured and expanded front parking lot. Moving on to Orion Alternative. This is the restoration area where the 10 classroom portables and 1 bathroom portable were. So you can see we've restored the 2 basketball courts, and this is a progress shot showing the field and baseball diamond restoration, which is now complete. The Orion Alternative, new 2-story classroom and admin building. This is a shot of the backside of the building. This is kind of a side front shot that shows the new admin building there on the far left. And another angle that shows some of the side work. Transitioning to Taft School, this is the temporary parking lot restoration in progress. The asphalt repairs, new seal coat and striping. Another angle. Some additional asphalt seal coat and striping. The new parking lot and drop-off loop. And the new 2-story classroom, library, and admin building. This shows the amphitheater and courtyard as well. This is the view from 10th Avenue and the entryway to the new building. And then a shot of the entire campus. And that's everything I have. Does anyone have any questions?
Looks great. Thanks, Will.
Thank you, guys.
Back on, I think, your first chart of when the projects are finishing, do you have an estimated date on there? Was it 2 or 3 that are just in the wrap up and final certification?
Yeah, I'd say we're probably a few weeks out on the punch list and final closeout of Garfield, John Gill, and Taft.
Okay. Fantastic. Any other questions for Will from the committee? Any public comment on the project progress report? All right, we're moving into section 5.3 then. Update on total revenue and expenditures for Measure T, bond program 5.3.1, revenue and expenditure update. Who've we got? Who's going to give this?
Erica will be presenting this portion.
Okay, welcome, Erica. Thank you.
Hi. Can anyone see the first report?
Yes, we see it.
Okay, so this is the sources and budgets report from accountability. This report shows the latest update on the total budget approved at the September 14, 2022 special board meeting. The data from the report shows revenues and expenditures as of August 22, 2022. It shows the funding sources, Proposition 39, the general obligation bonds, and impact fees. Each column shows the current school site name, and the grayed out columns represent the completed project. The bottom orange highlighted row shows the total of each site updated expenditures, which matches the revenue. If I go to the last page, the revenue and expenditures. The updated total program revenue now is $214,677,769, which has increased by $355,003 since the last budget adoption, April 6, 2022. As the program received more EV bus charger reimbursements and updated the projected interest to the actual interest amount. The actual interest earned for fiscal year 21-22 is $494,467.74. I'll go back to the first page. This is a summary of this report. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the committee?
Yeah, I actually have a question on the
Is your mic on there, Carl? Thank you.
There we go.
There,
Sorry
thank you.
about that. Just to confirm, page 5 of 5 is an extension of all of these sheets. So like line 3 on page 1 under proposed expenditures, that goes over to on page 5, the 2.55 million. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I know this question has come up before, but we have contingency funds in each project that are listed here. The projects are closed out. And then there's the additional board reserve amount. So is there a total of the project contingencies, and when do those get moved into the board reserve to be spent?
Rick, did you want to answer that?
Yeah.
And let me know if I'm misreading it.
Right. Yeah, so and Will may be able to touch on this a little bit too, as they have completed and have finally closed out everything. Those will be moved back in upon board approval when it's presented to the board, as well as looking at additional projects we may be able to complete based on the project list that is routinely presented to the board as an update, and then eventual action to spend those funds. I'm sure, and Will, please correct me, some of these projects that have completed but have small numbers are just in case at this point something comes up, and they will be moved in over the course of the next several months as this bond is completed.
That's correct. We've had projects that have been completed that we closed out and, scrubbed to the penny. And then we always have to come back and, do additional small kind of finishing touch type items and cleanup items. So, yeah, there are some small contingencies left in projects that are complete for that reason. Everything else you said was accurate, that once the project is complete, and we do not believe that, any of the contingency will be used, with board action, we can then move those contingency funds from the project to either the program contingency or the board reserve, the two broad projects that are shown on this page right next to the totals. So I do want to mention that the project contingency line item totals 4.1 million, but you can see on this sheet that the board reserve currently totals 2.1 million. So there's approximately 2 million still sitting in the project, the project contingencies of the actual projects. The other 2.1 is sitting in the board reserve.
So is it a fair generalization to say there's about 4 million that could be spent on additional projects once everything closes out?
No, we expect that the majority of that 2 million that's still being held in those projects will be used within those projects. There is a possibility that some could be remaining and moved out, but I don't want to say that we assume that 4 million will be spendable on additional projects.
Okay, just as an example, the first one on page 1 is Adelante, and it's got 25,000 in contingency. You're saying that will probably be spent?
That's our expectation, yes.
Okay, got it.
if it had, yeah, if it hasn't already since, this report was printed.
All right, anybody else have questions on the revenue and expenditures 531?
What's
Yeah,
that?
hi, Will. I'd just like to understand, you have a project contingency built into each of the individual projects, but then you also have the X program contingency. Is that above and beyond contingency?
It is. That is above and beyond. So when we started the program, and everything was budgetary, none of the expenditures were actual. We had contingencies built into each project. So within each column, there's line number 9, section G, project contingency. So that's a contingency for the project. And then Erica, if you can scroll all the way to the end to the sheet that shows the totals. When we started the program, we also had money set aside in the program contingency and money set aside in the board reserve, and confirming, yes, that those were separate contingencies outside of the contingencies within the project. And then we move money from the program contingency or the board reserve to the projects, or as needed, or from the projects once completed, liberate back to the program contingency or the board reserve.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks for just jumping in, Carolyn. I didn't see your hand raised there in Zoom. Anyone else? Is there an estimate of when the 2 million in the board reserve would be committed by the board? Is that expected to happen this year, next year?
Yeah, at this time, it's anticipated that will happen this year to allocate those funds as Measure T winds down.
I have a question in terms of the project contingencies, which I'm assuming right now are being basically used for the punch lists at the end of the project. Is there oversight in those expenditures?
Sorry, can you clarify?
So I'm assuming like the contingency funds, which are now being used for the punch list items. It's kind of my understanding, unless that's incorrect.
The contingencies with the project contingency, the contingency within the project is being used, on those punch list items and any other object codes that need additional budget.
Okay, so is anyone outside of the project seeing those items that are beyond the original budgets now needing that project contingency money? Is anyone overseeing that?
So yes, we meet with a bond program team, a stakeholder team with the district, and this is also presented to the board and approved by the board biannually.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great questions. Is there any public comment on this 531 section?
Yeah. So maybe you guys know this. I've all the information I've looked at. I mean, just going back 30,000 feet, right? I think the public might want to know. Okay, there was $600 million of facility master plan in 2013-ish, $193 million bond. And between that, after the bond was approved, there was some, list of the long wish list that was on the bond measure was presumably prioritized based on community input, right? You had all the schools, you have all the projects, and somehow that was rationalized and you came up with a list. And then there was a budget created from that. I don't know that, back in 2013 or when it was 14, I haven't seen a document that says, okay, here's what we all agreed on based on the community input shortly after the bond was passed. Here's how much we're allocating for each project, and maybe by each vendor, but maybe at least each project. And then how does, that tie back to this, right? So this is a fluid budget. It says new budget. So I have no idea. I mean, it's great to say we're on time and under budget, but if the budget is always changing, back to the original budget, right? How did we spend relative to the original budget? And are we doing all the projects that we envisioned? And are we doing them all on time? I think you had a phrase, on time, on dime, something chime. But anyway, you get the point. I bastardized that. But so that's the key thing is, I think that an overarching context of how this is doing, because new project budget is kind of, I mean, maybe that means something to you, but I don't know when it was passed, how we're doing relative to that. So that's just a process thing to keep.
Thank you.
The first forecast.
Any other public comment on this? All right, well, why don't we move into 532, which may shed some light on the questions you just asked.
Yes, this is, I make it a little
Yes,
bit
we've got it.
larger. Okay. So this is a expenditure summary report. And if you're looking at this column, fiscal year 2021, 2022, this is based on financial 2000 report. It's showing total revenues and total expenditures. I highlighted them in orange. And at the bottom of the report is the total expenditure of all three funds
Erica?
combined. Yes.
Erica, could you
Yes.
zoom in a little bit on your PDF document that you're sharing?
Is it better?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
okay. So this is for fiscal year 2021, 2022. And over here, it shows the total expenditures for all years, which is 195,286,083 dollars. Fund 21 revenue is 1,188,322, and the expenditures for Fund 21 were 53,232,897. Fund 25, 10,765,000 has been fully spent last fiscal year. And Proposition 39 has been fully expended previous years. That would be all. If you have any questions, please let
Okay.
me know.
Any questions on this sheet? I have one, and I know I probably ask this every time, and I apologize, but so that if I total up all of the revenue lines, it's 214 million, and I think we saw that somewhere else, 214 million. Total spent is 195, so we're about 19 million between what was raised and what's been spent. And just some clarification on the difference between the 19 million that hasn't been spent and what's in the contingency for this fiscal year. If someone could explain that again.
Sure. I think it's important to note that these financial reports were as of June 30th.
Ah, okay.
So the end of our 21-22 fiscal year. And since that time, as projects were continuing and completed during summer, there's been spend down of those funds that you see as of 6/30.
So the 195 as of today is much higher.
Correct.
In terms of the expense line. Okay. Other questions? Any hand raisers? No. Okay. All right. Erica, are you on the next? It's also labeled 532.
Yes, I have two more.
Okay.
So the next one. Okay. So the next one is a board report. I present from the District Financial 2000 system, and it's a supporting document for the year-end summary I just presented, showing the Fund 21 year-to-date actuals. So just to show that the numbers we're getting from this report. I'm not going into a lot of detail.
Yeah.
There are a lot of details. It's
Thank
just
you.
a supporting document. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah, and I think a point to make on this, and the reason why it's included is you can see between the two documents shown that the bond accounting system that they're using to track projects and expenditures matches with the financial system that the district uses. So we're showing that there is congruent systems happening that are showing the same outcome.
What was this? There's a little tiny note here back on the previous one where it says something was charged to COVID relief funding. Can someone explain what that means? It's the second line from the bottom on this first 532. I'm sorry, I didn't ask it when you had it up there, Erica, the previous
Oh, is the other
document.
one? Oh, okay. Let me just go back to the.
I just didn't understand what that meant. Can someone explain that?
Where? Sorry.
That second row from the bottom.
It's the net adjustment line.
It's a net adjustment. It's the difference in booking of cost of go bond issuance in F2K and how it was booked in accountability. And that was the difference. So the go bond issuance, for instance, here it shows 66 million, and the cost of issuance was booked as an expenditure. And in accountability, cost of issuance shows in the revenue as well. So that's a little bit of difference.
Okay, and what does this have to do with COVID relief funding, though?
That was the one of the and the COVID relief funding also. We had Fund 1. It was a journal entry adjustment. Fund 1 between Fund 1 expenditure and Fund 21. So we booked it as an expenditure. And in accountability, as it showed up in the revenue.
Yeah, so
I don't know if I explained it to understand very well.
yeah, so
Rick, yeah.
And I'm having a hard time reading this exact number in this small print, but
Okay,
it's $29,000.
$29,000. Yeah,
was charged to COVID funds that we were able to use for this issuance. And it's reflected in both the accountability software and the district financial system.
Okay, thank
Sorry, and just not to over nerd dwell on this, but I see that it's in the total column. What fiscal year did it hit? Was that this year or was it last year?
It would be 21.
It was
okay.
Yeah, previous year.
Yeah, everything on this sheet is as of 6/30/22.
All right, Eric, I think you have one more document in this section. Erica, if you're talking, we're not hearing you yet.
Erica, we lost your audio.
Oh.
There you go.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, just start over if you would, please.
So this is a report from accountability, budget and expenditures report. So it shows the budget and expenditures, and I scroll down to page 9 to show the total budget, 214,677,769. And as of June 30th, 2022, $195,286,083 has been spent, and it's about 91% of the total budget.
Okay, so this agrees with the previous document and once again is as of June 30th. Got it.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Any questions on the accountability report from anyone on the committee? Any public comment on any of these documents? All right, thank you, Erica. Appreciate that. That was 532. So that takes us to agenda item 533, discussion of district's plan on spending the reserves. Is there a presentation on this or
there's not at this point. I'll make a couple comments and then if anyone else wants to jump in as well. So right now, as Will mentioned, and as we've gone through this, as we're wrapping up projects and taking care of contingencies, along with the board reserve that is routinely presented to the Board of Trustees. Additional projects will be determined through the work of the bond subcommittee, identified need and what was on the project list that we can still complete. We're in the process of still going through that as these projects wrap. And so we'd be able to provide additional information on those expenditures at future meetings as it's determined and approved by the Redwood City Board of Trustees.
Great, thank you. Any questions about the reserve spending?
Are we to assume that that's something we'd talk about at potentially the next meeting?
Yes, we'll bring back updated information as it becomes available to these meetings.
Anyone else? Question on the reserve spending? Nope. Okay. Agenda item. Oh, I'm sorry. You have, was there public comment on reserve spending?
Yes, just Tom Rubin again. One comment. This is basically on everything. How is the district doing on claims? Do you have claims that are still in process? And this would probably be something you don't want to discuss in detail, but do you expect any claims? And could those be used? Could the reserves be necessary to cover those? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other comment in this section? All right. That takes us to 535, which is discussing future meeting dates and items for the agenda. I expect this to be a lively section of the agenda here as we talk about all the things we've heard and what we might want to put on the next agenda, and also discuss when we want to meet again.
Sorry, Carl, did we do 5.3.4?
Did I miss 5.1? Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Thank you for keeping me honest. We missed 5.3.4, discussion of the district's communication plan and outreach to the community. I think I was actually the one that requested this, I think 9 months ago for the agenda. So I don't know if there's anything specific, but I can tell you that from my perspective, because of the desire to pass Measure T, there's been a tremendous Measure S, sorry, there's been a tremendous amount of communication about Measure T. So I'm very satisfied with what's happened in terms of communicating about this current bond and what's been delivered. But is there more you'd like to say?
Yeah, just a bit. I was actually going to suggest, not knowing what that comment would be, but I think the district would concur that we have been significant outreach about Measure T. I would like to ask that we can even talk about this at the next meeting. You mentioned it, I believe, earlier about recruiting members and outreach, and tie that into the next meeting. And I'd also like to make a recommendation for the next meeting when we move on to that agenda item.
Okay. But are you suggesting that communication plan be on the agenda for the next meeting?
It could be part of the communication plan and recruitment.
Oh, with respect to recruiting new members. Okay. Noted. All right. Anyone else have any comment or question about communication about Measure T? Public comment? Okay, so now I think we're good to move into 535, which is future meeting dates and items for the agenda. So maybe the first topic is meetings. And I'll just start by suggesting, since we have new members and one of the jobs of the committee is to inspect the work, that I think it's timely to organize another site tour. Will and team, if you're up for that, and if the committee is interested in doing it. We did one of these, a year ago, I think. And I thought it was very helpful for the committee to actually see the results of this work. So that could be, and I believe that has to be agendized, or yeah, is that a word? As a meeting of the committee, since it'll be more than a majority of the members present.
Yeah, we'd love to, Carl.
I think last year we did it on, there was a school holiday. Was it Veterans Day, or is that in November? November 11th. That was a good day because obviously the students aren't on campus. So I don't know, if that works for you again, or if people want to look at your calendars and see if that's a date that works.
I'd need to report back on that one. I know it's a holiday, but not saying that that would stop us from it. I just wouldn't be able to commit to that today.
Okay.
Yeah, I will, this is Carl Metz. I will not be able to attend on that date. I have previous engagements.
Well, let's take a gauge of the committee's interest first off in doing a site tour, I guess, before we hone in on a date. Are people interested in doing that and seeing some of the bigger projects?
I would be interested.
I see a thumbs up from Carolyn on Zoom.
Yeah, so,
Cameron.
So Carl, if I could make a recommendation.
Yep, please.
The last time the group was so big that it was, when we started trying to schedule these, it became really difficult in trying to, schedule one that worked for everyone. So the last time we selected 2 days of the same week, I think 2 or 3 days apart. One of the sessions I think was earlier in the morning, like a 7 to 9 or 10 a.m. session. And then the other was later in the day once school got out. And that actually, it seemed to work for, quite a few in the group. We could do that again, but just a recommendation.
Okay, appreciate it. Any further comment on this topic?
Will, is it possibility to do it on a Saturday? There's no school. If people are willing, that would probably accommodate, many people who have the weekend off. And so that would be more allowable, I would think. No kids are on campus. Everything can be open.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally open to doing it on a Saturday. If we can find a Saturday that works for
people.
Would it be possible, I don't know, Olivia, for you to just put out a few dates to the committee members and just have people say, yes, I can do these 3, and we'll find a common date amongst those? We could try and do it in the month of November. Does that make sense?
Like a doodle.
And that
Doodle poll.
Sure. That would count as one of the 4 meetings that we're trying to get in this year, although we're meant to do them quarterly. This is only our 2nd meeting of the calendar year. Then we need another meeting, I believe. Do we need another meeting this calendar year? That would get us to our 4 meetings in the calendar year goal.
Well, I have a question. The elephant in the room of Measure S, and if that passes, what are the next steps? Would that be something we would meet for?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Potentially, that would be a decision that would have to be made with the Board of Trustees on how they wanted to ask members to continue on or to start another Citizens Oversight Committee for Measure S. And that would be determined after we know what happens on Election Day. But if I may, I would suggest that we send out another doodle poll to see if there's availability in the 1st or 2nd week of December.
Yes.
Where we could talk about the items that were mentioned today, as well as do a formal review of the annual plan that we'll work with you on to finalize what was already almost complete previous to June 30th, in order to be able to submit that to the board as well. So Olivia and I were talking probably sometime between the 1st and the 10th, somewhere in there in December, to have another meeting to tackle that for sure.
Any comment on that proposal from the committee?
I guess question is, do Thursday evenings work pretty well for folks?
They're good for me.
Yeah, I guess that we'll flip it. Or we don't have 2 members, unfortunately, so we can't poll the 2 who didn't come. But yes, Olivia, you wanted to say something?
Rodney did reach out to me. He did say Thursdays didn't work, but they will start working after November 11th.
Oh, okay. So for Rodney, if we do a Thursday in December, he will be able to make it. Okay. So is anyone, we'll take the opposite question. Can anyone not do a Thursday night? that's here and represented? No, okay, so we'll shoot for a Thursday in that first or second week of December to do the in-person meeting back here.
Wait, sorry, what's the first Thursday in December? Is that the first?
Yeah, the first Thursday is the first. We would likely, now that everyone kind of says Thursdays work for the most part, I would look at December 8th. I know the first week of December, a couple of members of this committee will not be in town. And so we'd like to have full participation for that meeting as we discuss the annual report. So I would offer December 8th as the next formal meeting, not the one with the site visit.
Perfect. Okay, so we've got two meetings proposed. One will be a site visit, maybe one Saturday. Olivia will put out a poll, and then we'll shoot for December 8th for our meeting here. Carl, did you want to look like you were?
Yeah, I do have a question about the site visit, because if that is going to be counted as a meeting, that would be a public meeting that needs to be, I think, accessible and shared. So if the idea is, kind of by our bylaws with our duties of inspecting the construction, I'm not sure if that can actually work as a meeting as well, because it could just it could not be as productive, since we would need to be providing accessibility throughout all the facilities for the public as well. So it can be an inspection, but I don't think that would count as a meeting.
Yeah.
So how do we get that fourth meeting?
Well, I think we did this a year ago. We did it. I think we did post an agenda, correct, for the site visit. It was an advertised meeting. We didn't discuss if we would accommodate if people from the public wanted to attend that meeting. It never came up because nobody wanted to, and so it was a non-issue. But obviously, we are seeing enhanced participation from the public, which is great. So I guess there's two questions, Carl, that are in my mind. One, does it need to be a public meeting to go do the site visit?
Yeah, I would say delinking the two would be
and if it doesn't, then it's not a non-issue, right? But if it does need to be a public meeting, how would we accommodate anyone from the public who wanted to participate in the meeting? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
We'll provide information to the committee on that.
Okay. Thanks. So I think the key question is whether it needs to be a public meeting if all of us go and visit a school together. If we're not discussing any other committee business, then does an agenda need to be published and open to the public? That's the fundamental question. Okay. All right. So with that in mind and shooting for a December 8th meeting for agenda items, does anyone have any topics that they would like to see added to the tentative December 8th meeting agenda?
I would suggest we have a discussion on the appointment of a parliamentarian. As I read the bylaws, the chair can do that. And so we, can talk about what maybe the chair would like to know or hear or think about in doing that. But I do think that's helpful for running a committee. We have discussed previously potential bylaw changes. If we were to make potential bylaw changes, I would suggest that in section 5.8, we strike the language that says for a period of 1 month after the date of the meeting to which the minutes relate. I think the way that that's written suggests that minutes are only posted for 1 month from the date of the meeting. And at least from what I've seen here tonight, they're not even approved by then. So if we could maybe correct that a little bit, make that a little bit longer. And then on the point that was raised around independent counsel, I do think it's an interesting consideration. I'd love to hear from the district on what the other bond oversight committees in San Mateo County are doing, and whether it's independent counsel or whether it's counsel that's standard outside counsel for the district that's providing that guidance.
Okay, so just to summarize what I heard, I think one was the bylaws, section 5.8 in particular, you mentioned, right?
Yeah, section 5.8.
1 month it's kind of.
I would recommend just a period after the word website, district's internet website, and then we can, manage it as appropriate. I think the very precise language that follows that makes it difficult to
Okay.
comply.
So that would be community. One item. You suggested discussing appointing a parliamentarian, and then
it looks like that's in the hands of the chair. So if that's not something you want to discuss, but I do think it would be, if there's input you want or anything you'd like to hear from the committee on that.
Okay, and then was there a third suggestion?
The third is a request to the district for a
Oh, yes.
survey on council to bond oversight committees for the school districts within the county.
So the discussion topic would be, do we want to have outside counsel for the bond committee?
I'd just like to hear what the other districts are doing and whether they have what would be considered the community input was independent counsel. So that's unaffiliated on other projects, not receiving revenue from the district on other legal work, or whether they have their standard outside counsel advising those committees. I think that would be helpful.
Within the county.
Within the county, yes, the districts for San Mateo County.
Okay, I've got those three written down. Other suggested agenda items, Carl?
Yeah, I would like to this might be a silly question, but with the independent counsel and parliamentarian or a dish expenditure, would that be coming from the actual fund? Or would that be drawn from like a general fund?
The bond fund.
Okay, thanks.
No, it would have to be general fund.
Yeah.
Let's
Okay.
into that.
Yeah, we'll look into it.
Okay. And then the other thing, oh, sorry.
Sorry, Carl, I just wanted to respond. At least as I read it, the parliamentarian can be a member of the committee if
Yeah.
there is somebody so skilled
Sorry.
within our committee and wouldn't need to necessarily be outside counsel.
That's correct. Sorry. I mixed the two up. The other item I had is there was an IT issue mentioned tonight saying that the application link wasn't working.
It is working.
It is working.
I was
Okay.
texting one of our members
Great.
and he was on it. And he says it is working. So I
Okay,
got
so
that direct.
no briefing necessary next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, but do we want to have an agenda item? I think this was suggested earlier about recruiting 2 new members, having that on the agenda for next meeting, what the outreach is that we're doing. Maybe we'll have the 2 new members by then and it's a moot point, but I think Rick, you suggested that for the next agenda.
Yeah, with the outreach point, yes.
So,
Okay,
so
other,
if I could just return to this, because it brings up a helpful point that was raised in the public comment, which was that you can't have 1 committee member in 2 seats, but as I read the bylaws, you can have 1 committee member in 2 categories as long as the right number of seats are filled. So I do think it would be helpful to survey within the committee itself and see if we're already meeting the statutory requirements or not. 11 is a lot for this community. And so I would suggest the board maybe consider that rather than trying to find a huge number of people who can come to all of the meetings and be available for all that.
so the question I think you're raising is member of business organization and senior citizens organization, whether the 9 people already on the committee fill those 2 roles.
Yeah, our bylaws say you can meet categories, not same seats. So yes, there needs to be 2 separate categories of the parent meeting, right? As the community or as the community pointed out. But I do think that the way our bylaws are written, if we have somebody within our committee already that meets those, then we could maybe ask the board to consider whether the 11 is the right number for this district, given the size and the participation.
Okay. Is that something that the district could look into between now and the next meeting? Whether the people meet multiple representations? Okay. Any other agenda topics? Anyone on Zoom have anything that they wanted to make sure we get onto the next agenda?
Would it be too soon at that point to ask for a Measure S update from the board?
Well, I'll certainly put it down because, we finalized the agenda. I think it needs to be published 3 days in advance. Is that right?
Yes.
And so, we have some time before the agenda gets, so we'll certainly, I would assume, know by the time we prepare the December 8th agenda, what the status of Measure S is and whether somebody's willing from the district wants to talk about it. But I'll definitely put it down. Great suggestion.
I would like to propose possibly too, if the district could list projects that were on the list for Measure T that were unfundable at the time, to see if those would carry forward for Measure S, or if there are projects in particular that the district was
So Jit Paul, are you suggesting the agenda item would be a review of projects that were planned for Measure T that did not get funded? Or
that might end up being part of a committee itself for Measure S, so maybe it's not necessary, but I might be a bit too broad on that topic. But it is just I'm just wondering if there is a spreadsheet or something that we could see from the original Measure T committee of projected projects versus what was actually fundable, what was actually where the bond was able to cover those. But there was a larger list.
is
that
that
was on the
something
public
that
website.
the bond team has handy, which is a list of what was originally requested in T and what was actually completed in T?
So I could jump in here. So we were actually able to commit to and accomplish additional projects outside of what we originally committed to for Measure T. So we have a list of those projects that were board approved. But kind of to answer your question, I mean, it would be the remainder of the facilities master plan that would be, landing on Measure S, if that makes sense.
Okay, that does. That's all I needed to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
So the master plans would be the ones that were, okay, perfect. And we can refer to those then. Those are publicly available. Thank you.
Okay, so just to clarify, were there projects done under Measure T that were not listed in the bond, the original materials at the election? Because Will, you're saying that additional projects were brought in. They were already on the list to be done, but weren't originally scoped as part of or were brought in exclusive of the original list.
So, well, there's the original bond verbiage, and then there's the facilities master plan. And so they were within the facilities master plan and within the original bond verbiage, is my understanding.
Okay. I think there is an agenda item in here, Jit Paul. So let me try and clarify it before we get to the next meeting. How about that? Rather than have
that's fine
discussed here.
Yeah, that's fine. Will did answer the question though. The master plan was what I was looking. Yeah.
All right. Anybody have
Carolyn.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Carolyn. Yes, please.
Hi, Carl. So I have a new member question. When does the CBOC report typically go to the Board of Trustees, and what is the time frame for preparing that for the board?
You were just reading my mind because I noted that the report is due on December 15th. So great question.
So my understanding, Carolyn and everyone else, the plan was near completion when the previous CBO left and the term expired for the previous chair. There was one or two unfinished items that Olivia has been working on, and that's what we'll bring back for consideration of the committee in December to present to the board immediately following that in December.
And this is the report for the 21-22 fiscal year, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Which ended in end of June. Is that the school fiscal year?
30th.
Okay. And got it. So this time next year, we'll be doing the 22-23 report.
But hopefully considerably earlier in the year.
Yes. And that would be the last one probably.
Correct.
Potentially. Yeah. Okay. Any other, we have some public comment for the agenda, so I'll take that in just a sec. Anything else from the committee for next meeting's agenda? Public comment on agenda items?
Thank you. Tom Rubin again. First of all, Education Code 15280A1, the governing board of the district shall, without expending bond funds, provide the Citizens Oversight Committee with any necessary technical assistance, et cetera, et cetera. So I think legal counsel may wish to look at that. I will say that one of the things on the KBOT's legislative package is to get that removed so that districts may, at their option, decide to pay the expenses of CBOCs out of bond funds at their option. There was mention of should there be one or two BOCs. There are a large number of school districts, community college districts that have more than one active bond ballot measure, Prop 39. The vast majority of them have one CBOC. Those that have had more than one have regretted it. Just to pose the obvious question, how difficult is it to fill up the membership on one CBOC? And then you would have to start over. Staff would have double tasks for two committees, et cetera, et cetera. There are a variety of good reasons why there should be one and only one. And so you can make good use of the experience you've already built up. The KBOTS has a wonderful set of training materials, particularly for new CBOC members. I'd be happy to make those available. They're very easily downloadable from our website, including frequently asked questions and audio-visual materials, et cetera, et cetera. As to your bylaws, I spent an hour or so going over them yesterday. I have about 6 pages of notes. I'd be happy to share that with anyone who's interested. And there are some things I really think you want to think about changing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment in the agenda session, agenda section of the agenda?
Yeah. I think one thing I talked about it earlier, but I just want to come back to it is for your consideration is to have some way of the public to be able to engage with the CBOC. So whether that's an email, like I think it's council@redwoodcity.org if you want to hit all the city council members in one shot, although that's public. So I'm talking about a private one. And second is making sure that the meetings that you just talked about, December 8th and the other one, the tour one, I think they're supposed to be on the homepage of the district because it's buried in a web page right now. So that's something I think just in terms of making that accessible and known so that people know that there is a meeting would be good to put on the district website. And then obviously I'm sure somebody's working on the systems side of things to make sure that, for example, the CBOC reports that you do once a year are not available to anybody. I happen to get them through a Public Records Act request, so it's visible to me, but nobody else has access. Like I give him a copy, but I think consolidating all these documents, the audit report, the audit and financial performance report, and the agendas and the materials for all the agendas, and the CBOC report you guys do all by date, similar to the way Sequoia Union High School District has it, which is a little better, and it's easier to find it. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if there's anyone left in there's one question that was asked a while back. When will the video recording of this meeting be posted to the website? Because that's something we can answer just quickly here in the meeting.
I would say that'd been mid next week.
Okay, and does it go on the same page where the agenda for tonight's meeting is posted?
You'll go on a page or a link to it on that page, yes.
Okay, great. I don't know if that person is still in attendance, but we've just answered your question. All right, anything to close out on before we adjourn the meeting?
Sorry, me again. So I just wanted to clarify
No apologies.
the
Your job.
report. The report that is in draft form, I just wanted to make sure I heard you correctly, that the prior committee chair caused the district to start drafting it, instructed the district to start helping drafting, and the current chair, I assume Carl, is continuing that request that the district help prepare that report for you. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then in the agenda item where we review that report at the next meeting, I think we should talk about how that will be made publicly available to make sure that we abide by the requirement that the committee chair has to articulate it to the public, to make sure that our chair is adequately armed with how to do that procedurally.
Noted. Thank you. Anyone else? Any final comments or agenda items for next meeting? All right, so that takes us to the last section of the agenda, which is item 6, adjournment. Is anyone interested in making? a
So
motion?
moved.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
I second it. I second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed to adjourning the meeting? Any abstentions? All right, unanimously agreed to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone. And again, welcome to our new members.